911, what is your emergency?
Units respond code 3 to a 1050 on the highway. Vehicles are blocking multiple
We're en route
lanes
to the
of travel.
hospital. Patient is currently having
We've got a
cardiac
4-alarm
arrest and has
fire
been
here.
intubated.
Send
Protesters
additional
are outside
trucks.
of City Hall and they are not complying with our
Out
orders
on 1.
to
Hold the
disperse.
air.
In a rapidly changing world for first responders where it seems that every day the rules and norms are changing, there is one voice you can count on to give you the latest in emergency news. That is Lifeline. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lifeline 911 podcast with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I am your co-host, Gary, and we are excited that you're joining us today. Today we're going to be discussing It's Not Personal, It's Business, which of course is a line from The Godfather, but that's probably not what I intended for this title, right?
No.
What do we mean when we say it's not personal, it's business?
What we mean in our industry is just that. This is business. Our business is helping. Our business is, as first responders, we are the lifeline to help for the public, and we are also lifeline to the field
Good plug.
responders. I know,
Yeah.
right? Lifeline to the first responders, the field responders, whether they be firefighters or EMTs or actual police officers. We're here to be that resource for them, and we are that calm in the storm, and it doesn't matter if it's on this side of the radio or this side of the phone. We find it, Gary and I find since we have charges, and I like to call our people charges.
Sure.
That
Because they're explosive?
no.
Oh, not those kind of charges.
We have charge in our charge, like some would call them subordinates. I'm really not a fan of that word, but what we mean is we shouldn't be taking anything that we hear or that is said to us over the phone or even the radio for that matter personally, because it's not.
Yeah, and I think that we find a lot of times that people will, like, when they call in to 911 or, the officers, the medics, the firemen on the radio, they're very short with the people in the communications center because they're typically having a very stressful moment, no matter, because nobody ever has any contact with us unless they're having a really bad day, pretty much.
Usually, yeah.
And so their nerves are already frayed. And then if you're a call taker and just, say you're taking back-to-back calls all day, all you're hearing are frayed nerves. And so your nerves are going to get also a little bit raw.
Yes, absolutely.
And that can sometimes lead you to make not the best decisions in terms of talking with people, right?
Absolutely. And I remember from being a 911 operator for a few years that was one of the hardest things for me to grasp and understand in the beginning is they're not talking to me. They're telling the voice on the other end of the phone what's wrong. And I had to learn that they would not know me from Tom's House Cat. They would not know me if I were standing next to them in line at the Walmart the very next day. So nothing they say to me is personal because it's not me. They're not saying, Erica, I hate you. Erica, you're the worst police officer. It's none of that.
Yeah.
It's none of that.
Yeah, because when going up with the 911 emphasis right now, I suppose when you get that call from a citizen, you may hear them say all sorts of really vile things that we'd have to put an expletive warning on this episode if we were going to repeat half of them.
Yeah, and it would be one of those beeps that just was continual.
Beep.
Yeah, it would just keep going.
But when people are calling in and saying such mean and awful things, it can get really tough to kind of disassociate yourself as, the call taker, the telecommunicator trying to provide them service and help wherever they need it, with the person that you are. Because, it is very human nature to take that personally.
Absolutely.
Because they're saying very awful things directed in your direction.
And you're right. It's human nature. No one likes to be spoken to in that way. But like, and you said it beautifully again, you have to disassociate yourself from it. You have to get into a mindset. I think when you are getting ready to sit down and take calls for the day, you have to get into the mindset of this is literally business.
Mm-hmm.
And my business is to help whoever is on the other end and not get wrapped up in what they may say to me. But I think, how is it? I was thinking earlier about this when we were trying to decide to do this episode. Someone said you have to think about the person on the other end of the phone. For everything that they say to you, you're really hearing something else. So in other words, why aren't the police here right now? Well, they're maybe saying that, but what you're really hearing is, I need help. I'm scared. And I don't know how the police system works. All I know is when I pick up the phone and I talk to you and I tell you what's wrong, I'm supposed to get a police officer. So anything else they say is only to that end.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times they'll say like things like, there's, of course, the ever popular, I pay your taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how to do your job.
Yeah.
You're not a good person. You're dumb. Maybe even like some harsher words than that.
Yeah.
And again, this is, as you said, just sort of they're in the moment. They're in whatever crises they're in, even if it's, in the grand scheme of things, maybe not a big crisis.
Right.
But to them, whatever's happening is the most important thing and the worst thing that can be happening.
In there, right for them, yes.
Yeah, and that's how they feel about it. And a lot of times they're maybe not happy with the answers they're getting in terms of like your call's not at the top of our queue because you're not, your fender bender, while a problem, is not a life or death situation.
Yes.
And it's hard to kind of, for them in the crisis moment, to take themselves out of that. So as the operator, you need to understand that part of your professionalism is to remain calm and cool when that happens, because you have to help them get through that because they're not thinking with their higher level brain. No,
because they're in crisis. And I know this to be true because as a first responder, as a former 911 operator, I have been that person with the other shoe, the shoe on the other foot. And I have literally been in a crisis where I've had to have my colleagues put their work hat on to deal with me. Not that I was ugly or mean intentionally, and I wasn't at that time, but I was in crisis. And so for everything that I know, I was not able to use any of it in that moment. And I needed them to be that learned friend, that professional, the subject matter expert, the whatever you want to call it. I needed them to be the first responder that I needed in that moment because I couldn't do it for myself, even though if the shoe were on the other foot, I could do for them what I couldn't do for myself.
Yeah, and there's something funny about like when you call 911, because I remember like when I first started here, and the first couple of times I'd call 911 either for like a reckless driver or a traffic hazard in the road, it adds a level of stress to you. And even though like I wasn't involved in like the traffic hazard, like there was like a bag of garbage in the road, it's just it like kind of amps you up when you call 911 because you're like, everybody's been so trained that this is an emergency number. And then you're like, ooh, is this really an emergency? And even though I might have like known the person on the phone that I was talking to, it's still there's just some ephemeral sort of stress about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then if you add on top of that, like actually being in a situation, like if there's somebody like yelling in your face or like you're fearing for your life, you're going to, the caller they're human too. So they're going to just lash out at you. Yeah. And it's not really directed at you.
Again, it's not personal. It is business.
It's business.
And they truly would not know you if you walked up to them the following day, it stood right in front of their face. They wouldn't. And outside of their crisis moment, they most likely would not be the person that would yell or scream or say any of those things.
Yeah.
And if they were able to step outside of their crisis into safety, right, and hear the recording of themselves, they would be absolutely floored.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'd be like, oh my God, I cannot believe I behaved that way.
Because it's really like almost like one of their most embarrassing moments, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like most people generally treat other people with respect, just as a broad generalization by and large, I think.
Yeah.
And you know, we kind of retreat to your lizard brain when you're in these, fight and flight scenarios.
Wait, you're what?
Your lizard brain,
Okay.
like your lower brain that's more like just sort of animal instincts. So
Okay,
you lose
that
that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
You,
Okay.
you lose that those niceties that
Yeah.
society has given us. So like you're just like, I need a bleeping cop here. Write the bleep now. Do your
Yep.
bleeping job. You dumb bleep bleep
Bleep. Yep. I have been called, I like to put it, everything but a child of God on the phone sometimes.
And it really can be stressful for the call takers and the dispatchers too, because
Yep.
Dispatchers are even more sensitive, I would say, than call takers to the tone of voice because they know the people they're working with. At least they recognize the voice. They may not go out bowling with them, but I worked with these people before. I know them. I know this person's going to yell at me if I tell them to go take this noise complaint call.
Yep.
And again, it's not personal. It's business. You don't know what's happening on the other end of that radio as a dispatcher. You don't know what that police officer, the firefighter, or the paramedic has been going through.
Yep.
They might have just gotten through a really big call and been really, really stressed out about that. But it's like that you still have to kind of just treat them with professionality. And I also think that for both the dispatch and the call taking side of the house, it makes your life go a lot smoother if you're not trying to constantly butt heads with the person on the other end of that line.
Absolutely. And I know from years of talking on the radio, and a lot of these people are my friends, and I, as a younger dispatcher, I would dispatch with my emotions. I'm not afraid to admit. Now I can step back from that because, one, I don't do it anymore, not like I used to anyway. But I do remember developing those friendships with officers, and when they would be in their crisis moment, if you will, when they're on scene dealing with some crazy person or someone who's yelling obscenities at them, and I don't know what they're looking at. And when they would key up and they would say something short, I would feel disrespected. I would feel as if they did not value me as much as I thought they should, or they didn't value me as much as they did the call before that, because now the nicety isn't in their voice. And I, as a young dispatcher, I didn't realize that it was not about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to lose that sort of ego, I suppose.
And it's absolutely that. It is absolutely that. It is ego. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of what you do and knowing that you are a valued member of that team. Absolutely you are. But it is not about you.
Because I think, especially for the dispatch side, one of the big kind of times that this happens is if somebody's out on a crash and it's loud outside and they tell you the license plate and you're repeat that, and they almost yell it back to you.
Yeah.
A lot of that, you're going to hear that, oh, this cop's yelling at me now because he thinks I'm an idiot because I didn't get the license plate the first time.
Right.
But, they're out there probably just trying to be louder so that communication gets through.
Yeah.
It's debatable whether that helps or not, but and then you'll hear more stress in their voice because they might be somewhat annoyed they have to give it again, but they've also got a whole scene they're managing, trying to keep
Absolutely.
everybody safe.
Yeah, and depending on where that scene is, they're also, if they're off to the side of the highway,
Trying not to get smashed by a car.
Absolutely. They just have a few things they're dealing with, and they are not, it's not at the top of their thought process that they may offend you or that you may take offense to something that they've said because they don't mean it that way.
Yeah, and I think it's good to remember that most of the times when you're working in a communications center, you're safe, you're comfortable, you've got your chair that you're on. It's physically not abrasive to you.
Yeah.
And so I think people tend to get a little more sensitive to the non-physical changes that happen.
I can see that.
And so, like, if you just remember that the people either calling into 911 or the officers, medics, and firefighters that are out in the field, they're undergoing all of that. And then also on top of that, the physical concerns and stresses and discomforts, like in Central Texas in August, like
tempers.
Like if the officer does a foot pursuit, they're going to be hot and sweaty and exhausted for the rest of their shift.
I'm hot and sweaty and exhausted thinking about it because I can honestly say here in about another month,
it's going to be awful.
I'm going to start getting mad, and I'm going to stay mad till around November,
late December.
Yeah, because it's just going to be hot as Hades, and it's just wrong.
And so to like kind of take that into account as well when you're talking to people is like they've got all these stresses, so you having the advantage of being like calmly sitting, in a work center, use that to your advantage to remain calm, to remain professional, because that is going to help get you through whatever the situation is a lot quicker, because you're not there's no sense in fighting the stream, I guess. So like if you can redirect it, but you can't force it to go back uphill.
It's very true.
And like I try and tell my what did you call them earlier?
Charges.
My charges. I try and tell my charges that as well. Like, you can't like completely change direction of what someone is, calling in about. But if you work with them, you can slowly redirect it around whatever issue is to get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And a lot of times, and you're right, sometimes you can't, but I think most of the time you can if you just mentally count to 5 or 10 when you are hearing them going on and on and on, especially when they're not getting what they want. And they're feeling as if their tax dollars are not at work.
Yeah.
They will tend to be very verbal about that. But if you just, mentally count to 5 and realize, again, this is not about me. When they're yelling that the cop isn't here yet, they may be feeling violated. They may feel as if they're not being heard. And no one likes those feelings. It doesn't matter what the cause might be. And all they're doing is lashing out because that's how they're feeling. And again, it's not personal.
It's business.
It is.
Yeah, and like for me, what I always try to do, and again, I'm human, I don't always succeed, is
Agreed.
Try and think of it as what part of the process am I playing? Because I'm here to facilitate, putting a call in or dispatching a call out. And what can I do what is my part of that? Is my part of that going to be served by myself, getting emotionally invested in whatever's happening? Or is that going to just make it harder for me to do what I need to do?
That's good.
And like, I've seen people that really, really get invested in like calls that are going on and like the people that are like calling in, and like it's emotionally exhausting by the end of the day.
I cannot imagine.
Like I can't tell you how many times I've seen people cry, and it's like I get it, but like it's also like your whole point of being here in a 911 center is to take those incoming calls and to send those calls out in kind of a dispassionate way. Like there will be things that happen that are going to like get through the chinks in your armor. Like anytime we have like heaven forbid, like an officer down or anything, that's going to get through you. Like, there's
Yep.
no way to like not process that without having some emotion. Or like if you're on the phone and there's some horrific event going on, like those are things that are going to stay with you.
Yeah.
But the 99.5% of the calls, even if the person's really mad, like you're just part of the process. You don't need to have that become your whole being.
Yeah, you don't need to internalize it. And that's easier said than done.
Yes. I mean, it takes a lot of practice and many years of trying to figure out who you are. But like,
True.
I think one of the things this job has helped me do is kind of become more aware of, and by extension, able to kind of control my emotions. So like when people are yelling at me on the phone, it's not something that usually gets to me. Now, like, as I said, like, we're all human. So if like you've had a really rough day, then, maybe that doesn't work so well. But by and large,
you really do well, Gary. You really do. This guy is he's an oak.
oh,
Me on the other end. I'll just be honest. I mean, I don't want to be hypocritical. This is not easy to do.
no,
And
it is
I
not.
tend to have to really. I don't count to 5. I have to count 25 because Boquita,
Yes.
which is my alter ego to those of you who know me or don't know me.
A very interesting alter ego, too.
Yes,
Maybe we'll have an
Boquita.
episode on Boquita.
Yeah, we may have a whole one. But the truth is, Boquita is very different than me. And so I have to clamp that down because my natural instinct is to be like, look, I don't have time for this. What's the emergency? Where is it? How can I get you the help that you need? Let's go. And I can't be that way. And I also have to remember, too, I am in charge of people, and so I cannot be hypocritical.
They can't be hauling you off to jail again for another rage outburst.
And I can't be looking at my manager going, so see what had happened was.
Yeah, wouldn't go well.
Yeah, the very things that I'm not supposed to do, that I'm telling the people out here not to do, I can't do those things. But I'm just saying it is easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely. And, every time you, I guess it's sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, you can do it for a while, but like, after a while, you're just like, I need to take a break and walk away from this, breaks are very important.
Yep,
So.
It's a good idea. Take your breaks, and sometimes if I like to say if you find yourself at the end of your rope that day, it might not be a bad idea to go up to your leadership and say, I need an extra minute
Yeah.
so I can pull it together. Now, you can't use that excuse every day,
Yeah.
but if I have an operator come to me and say, I need a minute or else I'm going to lose it, guess what I'm going to give you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you 5 extra minutes because I need you not to lose it.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's a difficult job. And
Yeah.
if you can stay cognizant of how these different stresses are affecting you, you can more easily kind of get through it without just totally making you a very unhappy person. And I have seen people that work in this industry that have become very unhappy and calloused, and that's not what, conducive to human flourishing.
And I'm, not to get too far off the mark, but I would also throw in, it's so important that you take care of your mental and emotional health outside of the job so that you don't bring as much of your outside life in with you, so that you are just having it pile on. Just piling it on. And if you are able to decompress in a healthy way from the job, then you don't continually bring yesterday's with you, your home with you, and it all comes back with you the next day, and it's piling it on because you're not talking to anyone, you're not decompressing in a healthy way, and then you, like Gary said at the top of the show, you're just not making wise choices, and then you have to come into a back room and sit across from me
Yeah.
and have another unpleasant conversation.
Which is, not good for anyone.
And I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. And, it's all about just, being, aware of when you need that break.
Yeah.
When you need to get up, when you need to pause, because, you're part of a team. Like we're all a big team in first responder land.
I love it.
Yeah, you've got the people that are initially taking the call. They filter through the mass chaos and just uncertainty of whatever's on the other end of that phone line.
Seriously.
And they put it into a readable, measurable, exact type of call, what this is. And then you have the dispatchers that send out on those calls, make sure the resources are being used in a efficient manner. And then you at the end of it, you've got the police, fire, and EMS that are going out there and giving a resolution to that call. And hopefully it's a good one.
Yep.
That's, what we always want. But
Absolutely.
if there's a breakdown in that chain because of, you feeling sad or you can't, butting heads with the people that are calling in or the officers or the medics in the field, then that's going to cause tension. And ultimately, the citizen is not going to get the help that they need.
True. Yeah. And you don't want to be the reason that distrust is built, because those negative experiences last. Everybody holds on to a negative experience. They don't really hold on to the good ones too well.
Takes 10 attaboys to get rid of 1-0 crap?
Ooh, yes. It doesn't take much to
Nope.
wipe it absolutely out. And people, what do you hear most of the time? We hear complaint.
Yeah.
People call and they complain because they're upset about the way this, that, or the other. And very rarely do we have them call and say, do you know that was the best 911 call I've ever made?
Yeah. Hopefully they don't have a lot of comparisons for it, but yeah.
Well, yeah. They don't, and they don't call us because they're, guess what? I just got engaged.
Yeah.
They don't do that.
Nor do we want people to call us for that.
No, we don't. But the fact that they're not calling us in that mood means that they need our very best.
Yes.
So,
All the time, every time,
Yeah.
which is kind of an earlier episode we had, how to take care of yourself.
yeah.
To kind of get rid of that. So it's really important to remember that, it's not personal what people are doing to you or what you perceive people are doing to you on the other end. You're here to fulfill a part of that mission goal, which is for people in need of aid to get that as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And ask yourself, whenever you feel like you need to argue with somebody, how is this going to help?
Yeah.
Ask yourself, if I let this, emotionally tear me up, how is this going to help ultimately achieve that goal?
And you will find that the answer will be it's not.
Mm-hmm. And kind of going back to just a little side anecdote, you're talking about leaving stuff at home. I was asked by one of the employees today, one of the charges today, they said, do you ever wear like shorts and like a t-shirt? And I'm like, why, yes, I do, but not at work.
Right.
Because for me, it really helps to mentally get myself in the right frame of mind to put on a uniform, even though if it's just a uniform that I've made up myself, kind of like Paul Blart, I took an oath. What oath? I made one up. But to kind of get into that frame of mind to deal with, I'm not because, I might not react the same way, Gary in real life, to the insults hurled at me that I would at work.
True. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Because I think, you dress for success, right? Because depending on what you put on, your brain makes an adjustment.
Yes,
into
absolutely.
what is projected out there, and I can absolutely see that.
Yeah, and so that's my plug for uniforms, though no one will ever go for it. It's okay.
Gary, you have your own uniform.
Yes.
I can attest to the fact that Gary has his own uniform. His shirts have
Yes.
our logo.
Yeah.
And his name most of the time on the other side, and there's a certain pair of
Certain look.
breeches that he wears, and
I go to Walmart. I buy 5 of them a year, and then I wear them every. Okay. Anyway, it makes it easy.
We have completely digressed to something else.
Yes.
But mindset is important. I think I would encourage anyone, especially if you're really, really new to this industry, learn this early if you can. Get your mind set right before you walk in the door. Realize ahead of time or remind yourself what it is you're coming in here to do. And hopefully if you can build that good habit ahead of time, that it won't be so hard. Because you will have those challenging days, no doubt. But it may not be as hard if you start off with a certain mentality.
Absolutely, yeah. If you can get ahead of the 8 ball before your day starts, because playing catch up is really, really hard to do.
And I've never seen it go very well.
No, it does not often go very well.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, just remember that nothing that happens here is personal.
It's just business.
It's just business.
Yep.
And that'll be our episode for today. I'm Gary.
I'm Erica.
And we appreciate you listening to this episode of Lifeline 911 Podcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. Until next time, stay safe. Thank you for watching our production of Lifeline 911 Podcast. If you have any questions about the topics we discussed today, or if there's something specific you'd like us to cover in a future episode, send us your questions at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. Stay safe out there. Until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.